got a different translation up there. I just grabbed the Bible that was here. What is this? NIV. It's going to be different. We're fine. The text for our consideration this evening comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23. The reading begins at verse 13. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence, and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore I will punish him and then release him." This is the word of our God. I like to think of myself as a student of human behavior. In other words, I like to people watch. I want to know what people are doing. I want to know what's going on, and I like to fill in the gaps in my head. If I'm at the airport and I see somebody running, try and figure out why. Why are they running? Are they late? Was it their fault? Was there traffic? It's always that they're late. There's no other reason you'd be running in an airport. Unless you really got to go to the bathroom, I don't know. Other times it's not as clear what's going on. Somebody's walking around at an airport and they look at a board and they look confused, and they walk over and they look at another board and they look confused, and they walk away, and then they come back 15 minutes later and they're still looking around. They don't know what's going on. And I want to know what's going to happen. Are they going to find the right terminal? Are they going to make it to their flight? Are they going to get stranded there? I don't know. And I probably won't get to find out. But I'm just curious, you know? And I have the same thing happening at my church on Sunday morning. I don't know what happens at Fairview, but at my church we usually try to have cookies or something after the service. So there's cookies and coffee and other stuff. And inevitably the kids will run in first because they're kids and they take all the cookies for themselves, and then the adults come in. The adults also want cookies. They're just too polite to go grabbing them. And then there's 3 cookies left, and then there's 2 cookies left, and there's 3 adults. And I'm curious what's going to happen when there's 3 adults and only 2 cookies. Are they going to decide, let's split the cookies fairly? It would be fair if each of us got 2/3 of a cookie. That would be fair. Is that what's going to happen? Or maybe something else might happen. Maybe they'll decide, maybe the adults will decide. The first person there gets the first cookie. The second person there gets the second cookie. Third person gets no cookie. So the first person comes and takes the chocolate chip. Second person comes and takes the oatmeal raisin cookie. That's always the last cookie that's left. Third person gets no cookie. Or maybe the first person thinks, well, we can't have everybody be happy anyway. Why don't I make myself the most happy and take both cookies for myself? It could happen, you don't know. And that's why you have to watch and pay attention, because then you can figure out what people are doing and what they're going to do. You can learn, see? You've got to be a student. I don't know if that describes any of you. I don't know if you like to people watch. I don't know if you like to observe people and figure out what's going on in their lives. And some of it's probably unhealthy. But if you have any sort of that in you at all, then you can relate to what we see in these verses. Because this is a portion of Scripture where we really see a business deal taking place. There are negotiations that are happening. And it doesn't just teach us something about human interaction and human behavior. It teaches us actually something about God. And it starts out in Luke chapter 23 at verse 13 as Pilate is talking to these people, and it seems at first that he has all the power in this negotiation on the basis of everything that he says. Pilate called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people and said to them, "You brought me this man." He's talking about Jesus. He just finished questioning Jesus. He said, "You brought me him as one who is inciting the people to rebellion." That was what they said. "I examined him in your presence, and I found no basis for your charges against him." I examined him in your presence. You heard the whole thing take place. You heard me talking to him. You heard what I questioned him. You heard how he answered me. And we can all admit you brought him here for no reason. You just don't like him. He hasn't done anything. You heard the whole thing. You heard our conversation take place. He hasn't done anything. So why'd you bring him here? That's not all. Neither has Herod. See, Herod's in charge of this area. Pilate's sort of in charge. Herod's sort of in charge. Go send him to Herod. He's in Herod's jurisdiction. Herod talks to him. He sends him back. He already knows what the answer is. And he doesn't want to deal with it. Because he would say the same thing Pilate said. What has this man even done? What has he done? Why did you bring him here? Why are we all gathered here like 2 or 3 in the morning trying to talk this through, these criminal proceedings against this man who hasn't even committed a crime? Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him. I'll punish him, I'll have him whipped, and then I'll release him. I, Pilate, will punish him like the Romans punished people. And if you've watched the movie The Passion of the Christ, which I think came out in like 2004, and you saw that kind of whipping, you recognize there's a difference between the way that the Jewish people would punish somebody and the way that the Romans did. In the Old Testament law, it said that for certain crimes that people committed, they were supposed to be punished. And one of the punishments was striking them 40 times. Well, the people didn't want to break the law. So instead of hitting somebody 40 times, they would hit them 39 times, just to make sure they didn't accidentally miscount. They called it the 40 minus 1. That was what the Jewish people did. The Romans did not. They would beat somebody senseless to the point that many people who were to be punished later, punished further. Some people who went to be crucified died just from the whipping. And Pilate, you just proved that Jesus hadn't done anything. You said he didn't do anything. I questioned him. Herod talked to him. Everybody heard it. Everybody knows it. He didn't do anything. So I'll beat him anyway. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you offer them that? Well, it's because Pilate's in charge. Sort of. Pilate is not really as in charge as we might like to think. Pilate's middle management. Pilate was put here by Caesar, by the emperor, to watch over stuff that's going on here. And if the people didn't like something, they could always go over his head. And in fact, with some of the claims that the Jewish people had about Jesus, it's clear they were already working on that anyway, saying, he's a king, he wants to rule. Oh, we can't have that. We only have one king. We have one emperor, and that's Caesar. So they could go the diplomatic route and get Pilate in trouble. Or they could go the other way. And they could start a riot. And if Pilate had too many riots on his resume, he would lose his job. He would lose his livelihood. And let's face it, the Romans weren't exactly known for being lenient. Pilate might lose his life. Pilate's family might lose their lives. Now we get a better sense for the negotiation. Both parties have some degree of standing in this matter, and Pilate is honestly, even though he's the one in charge, he's really the one on the bottom. And so he says, will you take a part for the whole? You want the whole thing. You want him to be put to death. I can't give you that. I talked to him. Doesn't make any sense. Herod talked to him. You all heard it. It doesn't make any sense. What if we just whipped him? What if we just beat him? What if we just beat him really bad and we sent him away and we said, don't do that ever again? He would probably get the message. Is that good enough? Will you accept that? We can understand that because that's how negotiations go all the time. That's how negotiations go all the time among people. It's not really who makes the best point or even who's telling the truth, but it's who has the most leverage. Think about it like this. You don't like how much you're getting paid, so you go into your boss and you say, hey boss, I want you to double my salary today. And your boss says, You know what your boss says. Your boss says, I don't think so, but why? What reason do you have? You say, well, I work hard and I show up on time, and really you laid somebody off and I'm doing the work of 2 people or 3 people, and it's just fair that I be paid more. Will you get paid more? Probably not. Not unless you have enough leverage. But this is how negotiations work. Somebody's on the top and they want the whole thing. Somebody's on the bottom, they're trying to give them just part of it. It happens when there's borrowing of money in families. It's bad enough if you have to borrow money from a friend, but borrowing money from a family member. Sometimes it happens with parents and kids, and I'm talking young kids, and a kid might need to borrow money. Hey, I want to buy this new game. I want to buy a new movie. Movies are so expensive if you want to buy them from the store at this point. I want to borrow $25 so I can buy a movie. I can't pay you back all of it. What if I pay you back just $8? Well, maybe the parent would accept that, maybe they wouldn't. I remember growing up, my sister and I broke a window. My sister was throwing it, I was hitting it. Whose fault was it more? I don't know. I was older. I had to pay more because I was older, and I hit it. And that was the way it was judged. But we had to pay together, and even still, we couldn't cover the whole thing of the mirror. But my parents said, we'll accept that much money for the window. But sometimes you wouldn't accept that. Sometimes with family, it's, you haven't paid me back soon enough. I won't accept half of it. I won't accept 3/4. I want the whole amount plus interest. That's what I've heard. Here's a hypothetical. Let's say that you and a friend are going out to eat. And I know there's a lot of inflation right now. Everything's super expensive. So you say, I want to go to one of the few places I can go and have food for cheap. I'm going to go to Bel Air Cantina. And I'm going to get $2 tacos on a Tuesday or a Thursday, either one. I'm going to get a few $2 tacos because that's cheap. And you and your friend, you go together and you order tacos, and your bill is $16.25. It's time to split the bill. And your bill is $16.25. And you tell your friend, well, you owe me $8.12. Friend says, no, I don't. Say, yeah, you do. You owe me half a cent. You owe me $8.12, and I expect that by Monday. Your friend says, I can't do that. I can't pay half a cent. That's impossible. But I've got $8 here. Would you take $8? Would you take $8? That's a question. Would you? Is $8 good enough, or is that 25 cents going to get stuck in your head? I shouldn't be paying that 25 cents. Most of you would probably accept $8, but what about 6? What about 5? How low does the amount have to go before you say, I'm not accepting this deal anymore? Maybe you could flip it on its head and say, you know what, actually I drove us here, so you should be paying more than me because there's gas, there's wear and tear to my vehicle, there's the emotional distress of having to drive on North Avenue, having to parallel park on the street. You owe me more money now. Anyway, we understand how human negotiations work and what leverage means, and when you're on top, you want the whole thing, and when you're on the bottom, you're just trying to pay part of it, because that's how we work as human beings. Unfortunately, that's also the way that we try to negotiate with God. Because in this negotiation, we're not on the top anymore. Now we're on the bottom. And we say, God, I don't like this deal. It doesn't seem very fair. God, you said you wanted me to be perfect. And not like pretty good. You meant perfect. Man, really, not having done anything wrong. God, I can't do that. I can't undo the past. I certainly can't make any guarantees about the future either. I can barely even keep track of the present, God. How can you ask me to do all these things? So God, let's make a deal. God, I'm going to do one really good thing every day. Monday, I'm going to make a nice, helpful comment to somebody. I'm going to say something encouraging. Tuesday, I'll help a lady across the street. Wednesday, I'll hold the door for somebody. Thursday, I'll figure it out when it's Thursday. God, would you accept that? Is that good enough? Is that good enough for you, God? I mean, come on. Perfect? I can't do that. God, think about it like this, okay? I did 2 things wrong today. Maybe if I do 3 good things, that more than balances it out. If I just tip the scales in my favor, God will give you 51%. God will give you 60%. If I can just tip the scale a little bit, God, that's got to be good enough, right? I mean, you can't expect 100%. I can't do that. I'm a person. God, I'm sinful. 51%, I'll give it to you, God. Every wrong thing I do, I'll do 1.1 good things for it. Is that good enough? Did I do it yet, God? Will you forgive me? Are you happy with me yet? Are you proud of me? Do you love me? God, think about it like this, my neighbor over there, this guy Jeff, that guy stinks. He doesn't even try. He's rude. He's thoughtless. He doesn't care about anybody. I know you're not happy with him, but if I do better than him, God, that's really something. If I'm just doing better than Jeff, God, forget about your standard. That's too much. This is the Jeff standard now. If I just do better than Jeff, God, is that good enough for you? Will you accept that? Will you accept that deal? Are you proud of me? Are you happy with me? Do you love me now, God? And we wouldn't say it like that. But that's the way that we, and by we I don't just mean we, I mean everybody. It's the way that people negotiate with God. God, I can't give you everything. Would you accept this? God, your standard is too high. Would you accept this instead? But God's standard is so much higher than ours that when somebody called Jesus a good teacher, he said, don't call me good because nobody is good except for God. That's God's standard. And we can't reach it. And we need to stop trying to negotiate with him because we can't give 60%. We can't give 51% or 50% or 49% or 25% or 10% or 1%. We can't do any of it because every thought, every word, every action, even if it seems kind, is tinged with sinfulness and self-interest. What's more, on top of that, we're adding sins every single day. We do more and more and more wrong. So we can't dig ourselves out of the hole we find us in. We can't. It's impossible. And the only thing that you can really do or say is to stop negotiating. Because God offers you a different deal. He said, I'm not going to offer you partial forgiveness. I'm going to offer you the whole thing. I'm going to send my son to go to earth. He's going to give up sitting in heaven to suffer at the hands of people. He's going to be judged and condemned and beaten and marched and nailed to a cross. He's going to die for you. All the while as we try and convince God to take our little pennies or what little money we have in an effort to earn our own forgiveness, Jesus offers the entire payment. You can't offer God part. He won't accept it. He needs the whole thing, and yet he offers the whole thing for you. Jesus lived and died on the cross to take all of your sins away. God gives you the whole. Stop trying to earn it yourselves and just recognize what he's done.